3 weeks ago, 3.4 million developers ran malware without knowing it. One Python package, one automatic update. Their machines were compromised before they even opened their IDE. And if you have a requirements.txt, statistically, you were one of them.
This is not a paranoia video. It is an engineering video. Every pip install is a trust contract with a maintainer you have never met, with a package that was fine last week and a supply chain attack away from being a backdoor today. You are not just installing code, you are importing someone else's risk into your project. So today, we are going to build something real, an API monitor with a database, concurrency, a local web dashboard, and a CLI interface, the kind of tool you would actually use. And we are going to do it without touching a single external package. Zero, not even one. By the end of this video, you will see the most uncomfortable question your career has probably been dodging for years.
I am Ivan. I have been writing Python for a long time, and this channel is for developers who want to understand what they are building before they install something to build it. Stay with me, because at minute 9, I am going to show you the Python module that replaces pandas in 80% of real-world use cases. It ships with your interpreter, it is faster, and almost nobody knows it exists. Let me give you 3 facts, back to back. August 2025, PyPy attack wave, 3 packages, term color, seesaws, sec measure, uploaded with names designed to look like typos of things you already trust. They passed automated scans, they got installed, they exfiltrated data. December 2024, Ultralytics, one of the most downloaded computer vision libraries on the planet, pushed a compromised release, a crypto miner bundled inside, over 6,000 stars on GitHub, trusted by thousands of production systems. And here is the one that is not even a security story. A typical node_modules folder weighs 500 megabytes for 2 kilobytes of actual business logic. We imported that culture into Python and called it productivity. They sold us this as moving fast. It was fragility wearing a productivity mask. What almost nobody tells you is that Python ships with a giant toolbox, polished over 30 years, audited by some of the most careful engineers in the open source world, battle-tested across millions of production deployments, and most developers never open it. It is called the standard library, and today we are giving it a real job. Here is what we are building. We are calling it Observatory. Observatory is an API monitor. You feed it a list of URLs from the command line, it checks each of them in parallel on a configurable interval, it stores the status code, response latency, and timestamp for every check in a persistent database, and it serves a live dashboard at localhost port 8000 so you can watch everything from your browser. That is networking, concurrency, persistence, and a web interface. A real product, the kind of thing you would deploy at work. One rule: requirements.txt stays empty.
First temptation: import requests. Requests is not in the standard library. It is a third-party package. Beautiful API, great docs, I get it. But here is what actually happens when you reach for it reflexively. The stdlib has urllib.request. Verbose? Yes. Ugly compared to requests? Absolutely. But let me show you something that will reframe the whole conversation. 100 iterations, same endpoint, 3 libraries. Quick, which one do you think is fastest? Say it out loud before I give you the number. urllib3, 0.33 seconds. The standard lib, urllib, 1.18 seconds. And requests, 1.73 seconds. Requests is the slowest because requests wraps urllib3, which adds overhead on every call. The beautiful API you are paying for costs you more than raw URL.
For our observatory, url.request handles every HTTP check, timeout handling, status codes, error catching, all there, all without installing anything.
Next temptation, SQLite. Or worse, spin up Postgres, write a Docker Compose file, run migrations, wait for the container to start. For what? To store 4 columns: URL, status code, latency in milliseconds, timestamp. SQLite ships with Python, not as an optional extra. It is in your interpreter right now. It is ACID compliant, fully transactional, runs in a single file, and survives reboots without a daemon. The Python SQLite 3 module gives you a full SQL interface: create tables, insert rows, run queries, get results back as tuples. Here is what engineers get wrong about SQLite. They treat it as a toy. It is not. SQLite powers more production systems than Postgres and MySQL combined, just not the ones engineers brag about. Browsers use it, mobile apps use it, governments use it. If your app serves fewer than 100 concurrent writers, and Observatory does, SQLite is not a downgrade. It is the correct engineering decision. Reach for Postgres when you need Postgres. Do not reach for it because you're afraid SQLite will make you look junior. 3 rapid blocks here, because each one takes about 4 lines of code. Concurrency. The stdlib has concurrent.futures.threadpool_executor, lets you fire off all your URL checks at once, collect the results, and write them to the database in parallel. No async I/O complexity, no Celery, no Redis. 4 lines. Done. Command line interface. argparse. You have probably seen it in tutorials and skipped to click or typer because the API felt clunky, but argparse generates a professional help text automatically, handles type coercion, validates required arguments, and does everything your users actually need. No installation, no dependency, and your CLI has a proper -- help flag on day 1. The dashboard. http.server.https server. You construct a handler that reads from your SQLite file, formats the data as HTML, and sends it back over the wire. The browser hits localhost port 8000 and gets a live status page. No Flask, no Jinja, no ASGI server, just HTTP, the protocol, done the way the web has always worked. We have a product. Let me be clear about what we just built. API monitor, real concurrency across multiple endpoints, real persistence that survives a restart, real web interface accessible from any browser, 0 external dependencies, 0 supply chain attack surface, 0 setup time, no pip install, no virtual environment bootstrapping, no Docker. If a bad actor compromises lightlim tomorrow, Observatory does not even notice. There is nothing to compromise. But here is the question you do not want to hear. If the standard library could do all of this, networking, databases, concurrency, web serving, from the very beginning, why did you always install? Think about that. Really sit with it. The answer is not technical. It is cultural. We were taught that more libraries means more productivity. Stack Overflow answers defaulted to pip install something. Tutorials skipped past the standard library like it was embarrassing to use. We absorbed the idea that assembling packages was programming, and we got very good at it. I was too. For years, I pip installed without reading what I was importing, without checking who maintained it, without understanding what it was actually doing under the hood. I was assembling, not engineering. And here is the distinction that matters. Assembling is fast. It feels productive. But understanding is what makes you dangerous. Understanding is what lets you debug something at 2 a.m. when a library acts wrong and there is no Stack Overflow answer. Understanding is what makes you irreplaceable. Are you an engineer or are you an assembler? This is not an anti-library manifesto.
I want to be absolutely clear about that. Django is incredible. Pandas is a marvel of engineering. Fast API is one of the best API frameworks ever written. When you need them, use them. They exist for good reasons. The point is this: installing should be a decision, not a reflex. When you reach for pip install, ask one question first. Does the standard library already do this? Not perfectly, not beautifully, but adequately. If the answer is yes, build it yourself. You will understand your system better. You will have fewer vulnerabilities, and you will write better code because you had to think. When you do need a library, audit what you are pulling in. Read the maintainers, check the commit history, look at the PYPI download spike patterns. One package, one bad release, 3.4 million machines. That is the shift. I promised you the module that replaces pandas in 80% of real-world use cases. It is not one module, it is two: collections.counter and itertools.groupby. Counter counts things, any things: words in a file, status codes in your Observatory history, error frequencies across endpoints. One line of code, 0 dependencies, microseconds to execute. GroupBy from itertools groups sorted iterables by a key. Combined with counter and basic list comprehensions, you can do everything Pandas does for tabular analysis on datasets that fit in memory: filtering, aggregation, frequency analysis, transformation, without loading 30 megabytes of NumPy into your process. And this is not a trick, it is part of today's Observatory. The reporting section of our dashboard uses both of these to summarize endpoint health across time windows. The code is in the repo linked below. If this exercise hit something, if it made you question what you have been installing and why, you need to watch this next. Today we talked about not delegating responsibility to packages you do not understand. But there is something more dangerous than a bad package. It is delegating to an AI that writes code you never read. In the next video, I walk through how GitHub Copilot generated a single line of code that cost one team $100,000 in cloud spend. Not a bug they wrote, a suggestion they accepted without reading. And I show you the exact pattern that lets it happen and how to never fall for it. Click the video above. See you there.